Not long ago, you may have seen an opinion written and published by the Battle Creek Enquirer, written by Dr. Joe Schwarz, talking about the Battle Creek Public Schools and what he phrased as the school district's failure not far away. And so that prompted us to want to talk more about that. Of course, Dr. Schwarz, in private practice now, a former representative in the 7th District, the U.S. House of Representatives, Michigan Senate, mayor of Battle Creek at one time, and he joins us in the studio this morning. Dr. Schwarz, good morning to you, sir.
Thanks very much. Nice to be with you.
Well, it's nice to have you here. How are you these days?
Feeling great.
Good.
Teaching at the University of Michigan, my 10th year in the public policy school, still practicing medicine here at home in Battle Creek, and serving on more boards and commissions than I can possibly count.
Keeps you on the road a lot, I imagine.
It does indeed.
All right. Let's talk about what you wrote and that was published in the Enquirer. And let me just read from that for a second. The very opening line of what you wrote is impressive. Here it is. The closure of Fremont and Urbandale Elementary Schools by the Battle Creek Board of Education represents an appalling example of reflexive short-sightedness. Talk about that. What does that mean to you?
To me, it means, as I said later on in the piece, that neighborhood schools are basically a pillar, if not the pillar, of our neighborhoods. And when you close a neighborhood school in strong neighborhoods, like the north side of Battle Creek where Fremont is, or like Urbandale, which has always been a very strong area, it starts to denigrate the ability of that neighborhood to continue. It denigrate the ability of people to want to live there, and when that happens, bad things start to happen. And in this case, people will leave the district, and in some cases, leave the community and go elsewhere. Mm-hmm. And this is not a problem only in Battle Creek. It's very interesting. It wasn't what made me write this piece in the first place. I was thinking only of Battle Creek. But in the last month, there have been numbers of pieces published, especially in Bridge Magazine, which is an online magazine published by the Center for Michigan. Full disclosure, I'm on their board of directors, but had nothing to do with the writing of this piece. And in just regular news media about other communities that are seeing a pretty disastrous exodus of students from the core school district. I'm talking about Battle Creek Public Schools. I'm talking about Jackson. I'm talking about Adrian. I'm talking about Lansing, and numbers of others in Michigan, 2 outlying school districts as a result of Michigan's school of choice law, which at the time it was passed, and I voted for it way back in the late 80s, the first school of choice law, but it's not doing what it was meant to do. Now it is an excuse, so to speak, for people to change school districts if they want to, willy-nilly. And it also, and people don't understand this or don't realize it, many people don't, when that student goes from District A to District B, that student brings with him or her $9,000 of state school aid money. Sure. So it hurts the district that's losing the students. The other problem is, in Michigan, we have almost 560 public school districts, which is a ridiculously high number, far too many than we need. And this problem is one that we're going to have to address sometime, I said in the piece, in the next decade or so, because if we don't, we're going to see a lot more things happen like happened to the Albion public schools, which finally had to be subsumed by the Marshall schools. It's a problem right now. It's not a crisis, but it's a problem. But it's going to be a crisis soon enough, and we better address it.
You know, when the schools of choice law was passed, I remember the characterization of it as follows. The cream will rise to the top, the lesser performing districts will be eliminated, and everybody gets a better education. Has that not happened?
Well, it has not happened. It has not happened. I mean, yeah, that's the world through rose-colored glasses.
Got it.
Sort of a thing. The Battle Creek district is still viable, but it's not going to be that viable for that long. The numbers of students from the Battle Creek schools that live in the Battle Creek district and quite frankly should be attending the Battle Creek Public Schools but aren't, it's in the thousands. And those students have gone to Lakeview or to Penfield or to Harbor Creek or to Gull Lake for the most part, and brought with them $9,000 to each student, to each district to which they matriculate. And that really hurts the Battle Creek district.
Dr. Joe Schwarz is here. We'll take a break and come back and talk more about this issue and others on WBCK. We're here with Dr. Joe Schwarz, former mayor of Battle Creek, Michigan senator, and U.S. House representative in the 7th District, at one time still practicing medicine. And today we're talking about schools. Maybe you read his op-ed piece in the Battle Creek Inquirer recently about the Battle Creek Public Schools. We've been discussing the notion that schools of choice is at the root of challenges that schools have faced. You know, you talked fervently in your op-ed, Dr. Schwarz, about the notion that closing school buildings is detrimental to the community and so on. Here we have a district that's bleeding enrollment. The budget doesn't add up. A stopgap solution to try and deal with the problem we presume has been to close buildings in an immediate response. But I think your point is well taken about how it affects the community. But was there an alternative that you could see?
There is an alternative. The alternative is one where the districts, I'll talk the 4 districts here, the Battle Creek schools, Lakeview schools, Harbor Creek schools, and Penfield schools, their superintendents and their school boards have got to have a sit-down. And it's got to be maybe a community sit-down and say, we've got a problem here. And this is a great community, these wonderful people. I'm a Battle Creeker. You know, I'm born and raised Battle Creeker, graduate of Battle Creek Central, U of M. I want the best for this community. And people who look at Battle Creek as a place they might live or might build a business, they want to come into a community that has a stable school district or school districts where they can educate their kids. And Battle Creek is not the only community. Others, as I mentioned, in Michigan, and the list is pretty long, are confronting the same problem. But we've got to have a sit-down about this. We've got to talk. And in the end, and people, it's going to be a hard sell for a lot of people, but there are going to be school district consolidations here. There's no getting around it. It's going to happen. And you can do it in a way where nobody gets hurt, where the quality of education remains high or even gets better. But we've got to do this, and we've got to do it dealing with the problems that exist and problems that people think exist but don't exist. And let's not kid ourselves. There is a racial problem, and it is not a problem that I'd like to see happen, but you talk to people, and race comes into what they do and how they deal with sending their children to school. And it's not only white parents that do it. African-American parents do the same thing. They don't want to send their children to a school where they think the quality of education is going to be lesser, where they think the behavior of the students is not going to quite add up to what they want. So this is a community problem, and we've got to face it. We've got to face each issue in it and say, okay, let's fix it. And what I'm saying that I believe, and I believe we will see it happening in other communities in this state, is we're going to be looking at school district consolidations, and we're going to distribute the students in an appropriate way. We're going to have magnet schools. There may be a high school closure. I don't think so, but we're getting down to a point where that is something you look, is that going to happen? Well, probably not. And I want to emphasize more than anything else here, because somebody's going to say, well, he wants to close my school. No, that's precisely the opposite. I don't want to close anybody's school, but I want us to look at this as a community solution to this problem, to look at our community, need to do what we need to do, and then get it done. And it's going to be tough. It's going to be a hard sell. There's going to be a lot of opposition, but it's got to be done. If not, we are going to go from what is a problem right now, a big problem, and nevertheless, I'd classify it as problem, to a real crisis. And trying to climb out of a real crisis when you're in the crisis mode already ain't easy.
Does Lansing have a role in this?
Lansing will have a role in it, because Lansing is going to have to do something to amend the school of choice law. It's too easy. It's too easy. And you have, I looked yesterday at several school districts. Adrian was one. Adrian is bleeding students, the Adrian Public Schools, to about 10 surrounding small rural districts. Jackson is bleeding students to surrounding districts. Lansing is bleeding students to surrounding districts. And Battle Creek, the Battle Creek Public Schools, are bleeding students to surrounding districts. And the solution here is going to be school district consolidation. And design it, set it up so it works. Everybody can have their input, but that's what it's going to be. And I may be not here long enough to see it happen, but I will flat guarantee you it's going to happen, and it's going to happen within the next decade. And what I was saying in that piece in the Inquirer is, let's start facing the problem now. Let's not wait for it to come to us as a crisis that is something that we'd have to settle, and if you settle it overnight, the solution really isn't very good. Let's face the problem now, and there is a problem.
And the momentum is building.
It is indeed.
Yeah. Dr. Joe Schwarz is here, former U.S. House Representative, former Michigan Senator, former mayor of Battle Creek. A few more minutes with him on the other side of these on WBCK. We're here with Dr. Joe Schwarz for a few more minutes on WBCK. So, bleeding enrollment, easy to change districts. Charters play a role in this too, right?
Charters play a big role in that if a student or a student's parents elect to send that student to a charter school, the money follows the student to the charter school as well. And there's lots of data out there now that tells us that the charter schools aren't really cutting it. Some of them are, but a lot of them aren't. And a lot of them are for profit, as you know. This isn't somebody's eleemosynary thing doing good for the community.
Yeah.
Charter schools are companies, essentially. And so the money goes to the charter schools as well. And they behave in pretty predatory ways to get students out of public school districts. And that's happening all over the state, especially in southeast Michigan.
What do we need, a Battle Creek promise or something to change the story?
I would love to see a Battle Creek promise. In Kalamazoo, since the Kalamazoo Promise, which guarantees a college education to graduates of the Kalamazoo Public Schools in Michigan public universities, the enrollment in the Kalamazoo Public Schools in the last 10 years has gone up 24%. That's a hard fact. We do have entities within our city and individuals, including myself, who would be willing to put in a small amount just to say individuals are involved in this as well.
Sure.
But a Battle Creek promise would be a very, very good thing for the Battle Creek schools. And in fact, if we could consolidate the schools and have a consolidated district here, we could have a Battle Creek consolidated promise. The wherewithal to do it is here in the city. People know precisely who and what I'm talking about, and that would be a good place for them to aim their eleemosynary efforts now, as opposed to someplace on the other side of the world. Battle Creek needs your help.
Before you go, you're teaching public policy. You've been well ensconced in elections. You've seen a lot of presidential elections. What do you make of what's going on right now?
I tell my students at the University of Michigan, who are juniors and seniors and public policy majors in the Ford School of Public Policy there, I tell them, watch this election, look at it. This is the strangest presidential election you will ever see, and I truly hope you will never see another one like it. It is just totally different. I've been watching them for many, many years. And this is a different one. I will be glad, quite frankly, when it's over.
I have a feeling you're not alone in that sentiment. Do you have a notion of which candidate is best?
Quite frankly, yes, Hillary Clinton is best. Not that I think Hillary Clinton hung the moon, because I don't think she did. Because my feeling about that is Hillary Clinton is the best choice among two not absolutely A-plus choices. But the one thing I know about Hillary Clinton, having worked with her a little bit when she was a senator from the state of New York and I was in Congress, and traveled in a small group with her twice to the Munich Security Conference in Munich, Germany, I know that she's a good thinker, A, and B, I know because of her long history in the public policy field nationally, she will surround herself with, I think, competent people who have the best interests of the country first at hand, people who will do the job, who have done the job before, who have experience in national security, as an example. That's why I think she would do a better job. I have no personal animus toward Mr. Trump whatsoever, but I'm thinking about what's best for the country, and I think Hillary Clinton would probably surround herself with much more competent people to run this country for the next 4 years. And the other thing I think is whoever is elected president, it's a 4-year presidency. Nobody's going for 2 terms.
Okay. We'll leave it there. Dr. Joe Schwarz, pleasure to see you, and come back anytime.
Thanks very kindly. Nice to be with you.
All right. Take care.